Welcome to the Walsall School Nursing Service Bedwetting, otherwise known as nocturnal enuresis, workshop. School nurses are qualified nurses who have additional training in child health and wellbeing, and they are supported in a team of staff nurses, nurse nurses, support workers and admin staff. The school nursing team support children and young people from reception right up until their 19th birthday. And also young people who have disabilities or additional needs can access support from us until they're 25 years old. We provide advice, support and help with a wide range of physical and mental health problems. We operate a single point of access and we are available Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and that's all year round. We could be available on the phone number 01922 423349, and parents and carers can also text us on 07520 634 909, and we offer confidential advice and support. Bedwetting is also known by its medical term as nocturnal enuresis. Nocturnal enuresis is any amount of wetting during sleep in a child aged 5 years and over, and that's when it happens at least twice a week, when there is no known medical cause. For children under 5, it's considered normal and it wouldn't be something that we'd worry about. It can be described in 3 ways. Primary, which means that the child has never been dry at night and there are no daytime problems. Primary with daytime problems, such as pain when urinating or urgency. And secondary, when a child has previously been dry at night and then starts to wet the bed again. It's more common than you may think, okay, but it's not something that you're going to talk about. And many parents think that it's just their child that's having the problem. But 1 in 12 children wet the bed regularly at 4.5 years old, and this is usually around twice a week. 1 in 40 children still wet the bed regularly when they're 7.5 years old. But that lessens to 1 in 65 children wet the bed regularly at 9.5 years old. So as you can see, it decreases as the children get older. Bedwetting is also more common in boys than girls, with actually twice as many boys experiencing problems or difficulties. How does bedwetting affect your child? Low self-esteem and low self-confidence, bullying and teasing. This may be that if other children have found out about the bedwetting, or especially if your child smells of urine, so smells the next morning because they haven't bathed correctly. It may lead to underachieving at school. This may be because they're thinking about the problem, or it may be because they're waking up during the night, having to change beds, having to change their pyjamas, and obviously they're tired the next day. They may feel isolated and socially and opt out of sleepovers because they don't want other children to find out. They may have difficulty making and keeping friends, and they may become withdrawn and anxious as well. How does it affect parents or carers? It may lead to a loss of confidence in your own parenting skills. You may feel very worried for the child and wondering why it's happening. You may feel guilty because you may feel it's your fault. There is a financial implication as well because you're having to buy mattresses, mattress covers, and the washing of the bedding, obviously more washing powder, fabric conditioner. Some parents may actually feel anger towards the child and be ready to punish them for it. Bedwetting can run in families, okay? During childhood, if neither parent wet the bed, there's only a 15% chance that the child will wet the bed. If one parent was a bedwetter, then that actually increases to 3 times more likely that the child would be a bedwetter. And if both parents wet the bed, then the child is 5 times more likely to be a bedwetter. So this is something to consider. The causes of bedwetting are not really fully understood. However, there's 3 main reasons why children may wet the bed. Number one is the bladder capacity. So the bladders don't stretch enough to hold all the urine that the body makes. They produce too much urine at night, also known as low vasopressin. Or they don't wake up at night when their bladder sends a signal to the brain. Okay, and that's called a sleep arousal problem. So this is our model. So there are 3 reasons why a child may wet the bed. And the child may have one or may be suffering from one or more of these reasons, but we're going to look at them in more detail now. So sleep arousal. Okay, when we're in bed at night, the bladder, if it becomes full, sends a message to the brain to say, wake up, I'm full. Okay, I need to get up and go to the toilet. Some children, their brains ignore that message and they'll just say, go away, I'm trying to get to sleep. Okay, so they're actually unable to wake up and go to the toilet, even when their bladder is saying, I'm full. They do tend to be heavy sleepers, okay, but those signals are unable to wake them. Okay, so that may be one of the reasons. A second reason is low levels of vasopressin hormone at night. Vasopressin is produced by the brain and it sends messages to the kidneys to reduce that urine production. It stops the kidneys from making wee, basically. Some children only produce low levels of that hormone at night, and therefore the kidneys tend to carry on producing the same amount of urine at night as it's produced in the day, and the bladder is unable to hold it. And the third reason is bladder capacity. Some children's bladders aren't stretchy enough. Some children have a bladder that isn't strong enough to hold their wee during the night. Okay, and if it's not strong enough to hold the wee during the night, the bladder will just let it out. Some children may also have an overactive bladder, and this means that the bladder will send signals to the brain to say, empty me, before it's actually full. Children who have overactive bladders tend to go to the toilet a lot more often, and you may find that a child is going to the toilet more often than the 7 to 8 times a day, which is considered normal. Bedwetting is a medical condition. It doesn't have a psychological cause, but it can have a huge impact on children's self-esteem. If a child is stressed or something major is going on in their life, it can explain why they suddenly start to wet the bed again, even after they have been dry for quite a long time. And this is because the hormone that regulates how much wee we produce at night, that vasopressin, can be affected by anxiety. Other problems which may cause bedwetting are a UTI, a water infection. So if you find that your child's wee is very cloudy, very smelly, or they say it hurts to go to the toilet, it may be worth getting them checked by your GP for a bladder infection. Constipation is another reason why children wet the bed. And I will talk about constipation in a lot more detail in a second. But constipation is when the child doesn't open their bowels regularly or the poo is very hard and difficult to pass. Another problem which can cause bedwetting is type 1 diabetes, and this is due to the insulin. And ADHD treatments, medication that children can be on for ADHD, or the hyperactivity that children experience when they have ADHD. So a little bit more in detail about constipation. The bowel, if your child is constipated, is obviously going to be very full, and the bowel can push on the bladder. Okay, so if the bowel is pushing on the bladder during the night, that can make the bladder want to empty more often. So constipation is when a child is passing fewer than 3 stools a week. It's also, if you have a look at the lovely pictures that we have on the left-hand side, you can see there are different types 1 to 7. If the type of poo that your child is having is 1, 2, or 3, then these usually mean that the child is constipated. What we'd like them to be passing are number 4, because that's a nice sausage shape, nice and smooth, and you can see that that's the perfect sort of stool we're looking for. That means the child is not constipated. If a child is passing very large stools, that can also be a sign of constipation. And also if they say it hurts them to pass the stool, or obviously if there is blood in there as well. And that's usually because the stool is so hard to pass that they might have caused something to cause the bleeding. There are many myths about bedwetting. Myth number one is there's no point in treating bedwetting because children grow out of it eventually. Okay, that really is a myth. The sooner that we can treat bedwetting, the better it is for the child and for the parent. There's no point in letting it carry on because it's not fair on the child. Children wet the bed because they're lazy. That's not true. Children wet the bed when they're asleep. So they're not being lazy. They probably don't even know it's happening. Bedwetting is caused by stress and emotional problems. It's not caused by stress and emotional problems. Obviously, bedwetting can start because of the low levels of vasopressin, which is caused by anxiety. Punishing children will help them to stop wetting the bed. Again, this is untrue. It's not the child's fault, so why should we punish them? We need to help them to get dry. Children wet the bed because they're deep sleepers. It's not how deep they're sleeping, it's their inability to wake up usually. And taking children to the toilet when they're asleep will cause the bedwetting. Cure the bedwetting. This is usually known as lifting children as well. But all this does is it's saying to the child, you can wee at the same time every night because I'm taking you to the toilet. They're not usually awake, they don't know it's happening, and all you're doing is you're managing the bedwetting, you're not curing it. So we need to get to the root of the cause of the problem to cure it, okay, rather than just manage it. So when is the best time to start managing that bedwetting? The child has got to be emotionally ready. They've got to want to be dry, and they've got to be at that age and stage of development where they understand what's going on and they can understand what they need to do to help. You also need to do it when the parents are ready. Okay, if you're very stressed, then there's no point in starting it at the moment. You've got to do it when you are ready and you want to get the child dry. I also wouldn't suggest starting it the week before Christmas because children are excited, and it's probably not the best time. You need to make sure that you're all emotionally ready, everything's calm, and that the child is motivated. So the treatments that are available for helping with bedwetting. The first one is the correct fluid intake and toileting, and this is something that the school nursing service will help with. And this will help to improve bladder capacity and that good bladder function. Usually we find with young children and young people who are bedwetting, if we can improve that bladder capacity, then that is usually the main reason why children wet the bed. If we find that the bladder capacity is good and we know that the child is drinking really well and drinking the correct amounts of fluids, then we may need to look at the next cause, and that may be sleep arousal. And if we think sleep arousal may be the cause of the bedwetting, then we would give you an alarm and we would support you then in using that alarm. If after using the alarm, we still find that there is a bedwetting issue, then we can then refer you to your GP for medication. And that medication is to address that poor vasopressin production, which may be the third reason why the child is wetting the bed. So the first thing to do as a parent or carer is to ensure that the child or young person is having the recommended amounts of fluid every single day. As you can see, the amounts differ between males and females and the ages. Okay, so it's really important that you know exactly how much your child is drinking, okay, and your child knows how much they have to drink as well. And some of these amounts are quite large. These are the recommended amounts. As you can see, one glass is 250 mils, so that is quite a large amount. Many children say that they've had a drink when they've had a sip. Okay, that's not a drink. It's got to be a full glass for it to count. So as you can see, for a female aged 4 to 8 years old, they should be having 4.5 glasses, which amounts to 1,000 to 1,400 ml. We also recommend that the last drink of the day is an hour before bedtime. So they have to be equally spaced throughout the day, but an hour before they go to bed, they should be stopped. Okay. As you can see, because they've got to drink these amounts throughout the day, it's also important that school are on board with encouraging your child to drink. So what should be avoided? Caffeinated drinks. So that's tea, coffee, hot chocolate, okay, which many parents don't realise is actually a caffeinated drink. It has got caffeine in hot chocolate. So they should be avoided. They are irritants to the bladder. And they will irritate the bladder and obviously cause your child to wee more often and want to empty the bladder more often. Fizzy drinks, obviously, fizzy drinks again will irritate the bladder. And also what many parents don't realise, dark berry drinks. Okay, so this is your black currants, your red currants. Any dark berries, even if it's a squash, should actually be avoided because they, again, are known as irritants. Too much milk, okay? If some parents say to us that their child drinks plenty, but when we investigate, they're actually having an awful lot of milk. You can count 1 glass of milk as part of your fluid intake, but anything after that is counted as a food. So if your child drinks lots of milk, you're only allowed to class 1 glass of it as a fluid, the rest has to be other liquids. Lifting and waking in the night, as I mentioned before, this is a myth that it will help with the bedwetting. It might help you manage it, but it's not getting to the cause and not getting to the root of the problem and helping you to cure it. Using pull-ups, okay? Obviously, if your child is bedwetting on a regular basis, using pull-ups may seem a good idea because you're not getting the wet beds. But actually what you're saying to the child is, it's okay to wee because you've got your security blanket on, you've got your pull-up, it's going to catch it. Okay, so while your child is wearing pull-ups, you are probably not going to get them dry. They will continue to wet. And don't shout at the child. It's not their faults. As I've just explained, there may be any of those 3 reasons why your child is wet in the bed. Okay, so it's not their fault. They're asleep. They don't know it's happening. So we've got to encourage them and we've got to support them in getting dry. So that's what you can't do. This is what you can do. Ensure your child's got a good balanced diet. Okay, obviously if the child has got a good balanced diet, they're less likely to be constipated. So that again is going to help. Encourage them to use the toilet 4 to 7 times a day. That is the average that we want. That is what we consider normal for a child or an adult to be going to the toilet that amount of times in a day. If your child is going to the toilet a lot more than that, then it could be that the bladder is becoming irritated by fizzy drinks, caffeine drinks. Yeah, so it might be worth having a look at what types of drinks they're having. Obviously, the types that we would recommend are water, squash, as long as it's orange, lemon, lime, the paler colours really. Encouraging a good bedtime routine. If they have got a good bedtime routine, then they're more likely to get off to sleep in good time and they'll be nice and relaxed. We also advise to double void, what we call double void before bedtime. So that means going back to the toilet again if they've been awake for at least 20 minutes after going up to go to the toilet, going up to go to bed. So what we'd recommend is they go upstairs, they get changed, ready for bed, brush their teeth, go to the toilet. And then they may get into bed and read a book. They may watch a DVD, so something like that, whatever your child does at night. We would encourage you to send them back to the toilet at that point, because for the whole time that your child has been awake, their body has been producing more urine. So there is already a small amount of urine in the bladder before they've actually fallen asleep. Ensuring that they've got easy access to the toilet or the potty. So that means if it is downstairs and it's dark downstairs and your child doesn't like going downstairs, maybe either making sure that there is a light on, or making sure that they know exactly where they've got to go. If it is quite a way for them to walk down to the toilet, maybe starting off having a bucket in the child's bedroom for them to just have that easy access until you've sorted out the bedwetting. And then obviously, once the bedwetting is sorted, you can take the bucket away and they can continue to go to the toilet if they need it. Think about the sleeping arrangements, especially if your child is in a bunk bed. If your child is on the top bunk of a set of bunk beds and they wake during the night because they need the toilet, yeah, it's not going to be very nice for them to have to get down the ladder, get out of bed. Yeah, so if they're on the bottom bunk, it's easier for them to get out. So if they are on the top bunk, maybe see if we can change those sleeping arrangements and move the child to the bottom bunk. Again, just until the bedwetting is sorted out, and then you can change them over again. If your child goes to bed thinking that if they do wake up, they've got to help changing the bedding, that can be a bit of a deterrent for them. So many children, if you say to them, you know, you've got to help change the bed, they will do it grudgingly, many children probably. But if they go to bed thinking that they've got to do it if they wake up, then that can be a deterrent and it may help. Obviously ensuring there is that good hygiene routine the next morning, if there has been a wet bed, making sure that they've had a bath or a shower so that there is not an odour. Because as I said at the start, one of the impacts on children can be bullying. And obviously this is going to happen more if the child does smell of urine. So making sure they've got a good hygiene routine and they're nice and clean and fresh when they go to school. Complete the charts included in the pack. I will talk about the pack at the end, okay? But also encouraging your child to drink those recommended amounts of fluid. That, I can't stress that enough. That is one of the most important things that we need to look at. How much your child's drinking and what types of drink. And as I said earlier, spread out throughout the day, okay, and an hour before bedtime. Many parents like to use rewards, and this is a good idea for something like bedwetting, okay? But please don't use rewards for dry nights to begin with, because this isn't something that your child will have any control over, okay? If they're not getting any dry nights, they're not getting any rewards, they will become a bit disillusioned with it and probably won't even want to try. But if you reward them for doing things that are going to help with the bedwetting, then they've got control over that. So they can be rewarded for having the extra drinks if they're not good at drinking. They can be rewarded for going to the toilet twice before bed. They can be rewarded for they can be rewarded for helping you to change the bed covers at night. They can be rewarded for not wanting to put a pull-up on if that's something that they've always done. So reward them for something that they've got control over, which is going to help with the bedwetting. So celebrate, but don't reward any dry nights that you get, okay? Because like I said, they don't have any control over that. So, but do celebrate them. If they do have a dry night, that is fantastic. And yeah, really, really praise them for that. That's brilliant. But continue with the rewards for doing everything that they're doing to help, because that will lead to a long-term solution. Don't remove any rewards if your child has already earned them. Yeah, they've earned that, so please don't take them away from them. Again, they will get fed up if that's happening and think, well, that's not fair, I'm not going to bother doing it anymore. For rewards, always decide with the child what the reward's going to be. Okay, the best reward you can give your child is your time. So doing something nice together. Yeah, having a meal that they've decided what it's going to be, maybe having a DVD night that the child's decided what the film is going to be. Yeah, going to the park, just something where they've decided with you what it's going to be, but it's something nice that they really want. Try not to be giving rewards that cost money. Rewards don't have to cost money. And if you start giving rewards that cost money now, when you do get lots and lots of dry nights and you do start getting rewarded, you know, you do start giving them more and more rewards, then it's going to cost you a fortune. So yeah, so just reward what the child's got control over, and something nice to do together. Be very clear with your child what they're going to be rewarded for as well, so they know exactly what it is that they're doing right. Be very consistent with those rewards. Okay, so make sure that if you start rewarding some kind of behaviour, that you keep doing it and don't stop. And be very mindful of other children in the family. We have actually known families where a child has been getting lots and lots of attention because they were a bedwetter, they were getting rewards, and another child could see that happening. And a child who had been previously dry suddenly started wetting the bed because they wanted the same sort of attention. So be very aware of other children, that you are including them as well. So something that we would encourage you to do first is we've got to look at that bladder capacity. And in the pack that we will send you if you ring up and ask for it, will be some charts that you can record that bladder capacity. So what we'd ask you to do is to get a jug, okay, probably not one out your kitchen cupboard, maybe go and buy a new one from Poundland, and get a jug, and we would want you to measure the amount that your child wees twice a week for 8 weeks. And that would be different times of the day and different days of the week. So we'd ask them to wee into a jug rather than into the toilet. Don't use the first wee of the day. Okay, so try and maybe if the child's at home at 10 o'clock and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If they're at school, maybe 8 o'clock before leaving for school and 7 o'clock later in the day. Yeah, so twice a week. Yeah, twice a week at different times for 8 weeks. Measure when the bladder's full, when the child says that they need to go to the toilet, but not when they're desperate, not when they're jumping around and they can't hold it anymore. Yeah, but just when they say, oh, I need a wee. And to read the amounts, put the jug on a flat surface, yeah, and make sure that you're looking at it then. Don't sort of hold the jug up like that, because it's not going to be an accurate reading. So what we would ask you to do now is to use the advice given today for the next 8 weeks. We'd like you to give us a ring and request an enuresis pack. In the pack will be lots and lots of further advice, more advice than I've given you today, and a lot more detail, and also lots and lots of charts. There's going to be the bladder capacity chart, which I've just talked about, so you can record how much your child is weeing. There are some charts for you to record how much your child is drinking. There's also charts for your child to complete to say how much they're drinking. They're little cups that they can actually colour in, okay, so that makes it fun for them. And there's a poo chart as well. So if your child is constipated and you feel that constipation is a problem, there is a chart in there where they can cut out lovely pictures of poos and stick them onto a chart, and you can keep a record really of what's going on. You can see if the constipation is improving. By looking at these charts, by keeping the charts, again, you can see if there's any improvement or change. If obviously after 8 weeks there is no improvement, you have completed all the charts, you've done everything that we've advised, but there's been no improvement, you can give us a ring. After that 8 weeks, if you give us a ring, we will offer you an appointment where you'll be assessed by a nurse, and we can think about what the next step is. Usually, if you come to us and you've increased the bladder capacity, so that means the child is drinking the recommended amounts and the bladder capacity is what it should be for a child that age, we will think, right, it's obviously not the bladder capacity that's the problem, and it may be the sleep arousal. So that would be the next stage. So what we may do then is offer an alarm. If we feel it may not be sleep arousal, but from that health assessment we think it may be something else, then obviously we can talk about the plan for the future. What's the next step really? Okay, so if you are watching this as a webinar, what we would urge you to do is give us a ring on 01922 423349, and we can send you this pack that I've been talking about with lots more further information regarding bedwetting in there and lots of charts. And these obviously are for you to record for your what your child is drinking, what sort of bladder capacity your child has, and if there is a problem with the constipation. Okay, so thank you very much for listening to today's webinar. I hope it's given you lots of things to think about and lots of advice that you can follow for the next few weeks. Please give us a ring if you want one of our packs and if you need any further help and support. If you do need any further help and support or guidance regarding the pack, or if you've got any further questions, then again you can ring us on 01922 423349 and you can speak to our duty nurse. Any changes are going to be slow. This is what we want you to remember. Okay, we want you to think positively. Okay, any change that will happen will take place over a long period of time. Yeah, so remember, if you do have an appointment if you do require an appointment in 8 weeks' time, though, you will need to bring the completed fluid charts and bladder capacity charts. So I can't stress enough how important it is that you complete those charts. Okay, as I say, this is our single point of access. If you've got any further questions, please do give us a ring. Okay, and thank you for listening to today's webinar.